The room was silent when Judge Amy Coney Barrett leaned forward, expecting to control the tone of the exchange, but within seconds, Jasmine Crockett flipped the script in a way no one in the chamber could have predicted. Her voice cut through the tension, bold and unwavering, leaving the audience stunned. "You may think you're questioning me," she declared, "but I'm questioning the system you represent." The words echoed like a gavel strike, sparking whispers that rippled across the room. Barrett tried to steady the moment with a calm demeanor, but the sudden reversal left her visibly caught off guard. Crockett did not wait for permission. She seized the spotlight with relentless energy. She reminded the room that her role was not to bow down, but to call out contradictions that others were too afraid to address. The shock was instant, reporters scrambling to capture every word, knowing this was no ordinary hearing. In just a few sentences, Crockett had transformed a cross-examination into a confrontation about truth and accountability. Gasps turned into murmurs, and murmurs turned into applause from onlookers who could not believe how quickly the balance of power shifted. Barrett, who moments earlier seemed in command, now sat in stunned silence as Crockett's words reverberated beyond the chamber walls. What began as a routine line of questioning exploded into a cultural flashpoint. Social media lit up within minutes, clips circulating, hashtags trending, and millions demanding to know, how could a judge of Barrett's stature be shaken so effortlessly? The answer was clear. Crockett had turned the tables, and she was just getting started. The hearing had been billed as routine, another day of sharp questions and carefully measured answers inside the Senate chamber. Judge Amy Coney Barrett, known for her composure and meticulous style, entered the exchange confident she would expose weaknesses in Jasmine Crockett's testimony. The expectation was simple. Barrett would press, Crockett would defend. But the stage was never truly balanced. Crockett, a rising political figure with a reputation for fire and precision, had come prepared. She had studied not only the issues on the table, but also Barrett's record, her public statements, and the contradictions hidden between her rulings and her rhetoric. It wasn't just a hearing for Crockett. It was a chance to show that even the highest robes of the court could not shield someone from accountability. The chamber was filled with senators, aides, journalists, and cameras that streamed the proceedings live to millions. Each viewer brought their own bias, some cheering for Barrett as the symbol of conservative strength, others rooting for Crockett as the embodiment of fearless opposition. The clash was never just personal, it was ideological, cultural, and symbolic of the broader divides tearing across America. As Barrett began her questioning, she projected authority. "Congresswoman Crockett," she said, "you've spoken often about fairness and equality, but your record shows selective outrage. Why should anyone take your words seriously when they shift with political convenience?" It was meant to be a cutting line, rehearsed and sharp. But Crockett did not flinch. She leaned into the microphone, eyes steady, and replied with the kind of clarity that made everyone sit up. "Selective outrage? Judge, the only thing selective here is your interpretation of justice. You pick and choose when the Constitution applies. I don't have that luxury. I speak for people who don't get to sit in your chair." The response landed like a thunderclap. Senators shifted uncomfortably, reporters scribbled furiously, and the live stream audience exploded with comments. The atmosphere was electric, the kind of moment where the hearing itself seemed to transcend politics and become something larger. The contrast was stark. Barrett's judicial calm against Crockett's raw conviction. It was clear now, this was not going to be an ordinary cross-examination. It was a showdown, and the world was watching. Barrett tightened her expression, refusing to let Crockett's retort go unchallenged. She raised her voice slightly, a rare crack in her otherwise measured delivery. "Congresswoman, you speak of justice as if it is a tool to wield. But justice is blind, and it does not bend to emotion or theatrics." The words hung heavy, meant to reassert control, to remind everyone of her authority as a Supreme Court justice. But Crockett pounced. "Blind justice?" she shot back. "No, Judge, it's been selective vision, blind to poverty, blind to discrimination. Blind when the powerless beg for fairness, and wide-eyed when the wealthy and connected come knocking." The chamber erupted in gasps. Barrett tried to interject, but Crockett pushed forward, each sentence cutting sharper than the last. Let's talk about your rulings, Crockett continued, flipping through the pages of notes. You call yourself impartial, yet you've consistently sided with corporations over workers, power over people. You claim faith guides your morality, but when mothers cry over children lost to injustice, your opinions offer them silence. Tell me, Judge, is that blindness or is it convenience? The words struck deep, and Barrett for the first time faltered. Her attempt to respond was met with Crockett's relentless rhythm. It was no longer a Q&A session, it was an indictment, and Barrett was the one under the spotlight. Senators exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to intervene or let the spectacle play out. Barrett finally managed a response, her tone sharper now. I will not apologize for upholding the Constitution as it is written. My duty is to the law, not to popular opinion. Crockett's reply was instantaneous. And yet the people are the very reason that Constitution exists. Without them, your rulings are ink on paper. You sit in judgment of lives you'll never live, and then call it impartiality. The audience was transfixed, some nodding, others shaking their heads, but no one looking away. The clash had become raw, personal, and unfiltered. Crockett wasn't just answering questions. She was dismantling the foundation of Barrett's argument piece by piece. What was supposed to be a controlled cross-examination had turned into something much bigger. A trial of ideas, a collision of authority and defiance. And for the first time, it was Barrett who looked cornered. Barrett, now visibly unsettled, leaned forward and tried to regain footing. Congresswoman Crockett, she pressed, you accuse me of partiality, but where is your evidence? Do you truly believe you stand above the highest court in the land? Her voice was stern, hoping to frame Crockett as reckless, but Crockett was ready. She raised her voice, steady and cutting. Evidence? Let's put it on the record. You ruled against workers fighting unsafe conditions. You sided with corporations polluting communities that look like mine. And you struck down protections for women while claiming your faith values life. That is not blind justice, Judge Barrett. That is power protecting power. The chamber froze. The examples weren't vague rhetoric. They were facts, pulled from Barrett's own record, laid bare before millions watching. Senators exchanged sharp whispers, the audience buzzed, and even Barrett's allies looked uneasy. Crockett leaned closer to the microphone, her words now a hammer blow. You want to question my credibility? Then answer this. How can justice ever be trusted if the judge herself cannot answer for the contradictions in her own rulings? Barrett opened her mouth but stopped. For a brief, stunning moment, she had no reply. The silence was deafening. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the rare image of a Supreme Court justice with no words. Then came Crockett's final strike. The truth doesn't fear cross-examination, Judge, but it seems your record does. The audience erupted. Gasps, murmurs, scattered applause that grew into a wave of clapping before the gavel slammed to restore order. The control Barrett had expected was gone, completely flipped by Crockett's fearless confrontation. This was the turning point. What began as Barrett's attempt to expose weakness had become the moment that exposed her instead. The cross-examiner had been cross-examined, and the stunned silence of Amy Coney Barrett told the whole story. As the chamber slowly quieted, all eyes remained locked on Barrett, still struggling to compose herself. But it was Crockett who seized the moment, her voice calm yet unshakably firm. This is not about me, and it's not about you. This is about the people who trusted us to stand here. They deserve justice that doesn't hide behind titles or robes. Her words carried a weight that silenced even the loudest critics. Reporters leaned forward, scribbling furiously as if trying to capture history unfolding in real time. The live stream audience exploded with comments, some praising Barrett for holding her ground, but far more hailing Crockett as the voice that dared to challenge untouchable power. Barrett finally spoke, her tone quieter now. Congresswoman, I serve the law. Crockett shook her head. Then let the law serve the people. Because when justice forgets the faces of those it's meant to protect, it is no longer justice. It is just authority. The final line landed with devastating clarity. The room erupted again, senators banging the table to restore order, aides rushing to control the chaos, and cameras catching every angle of Barrett's stunned expression. Outside the chamber, the impact was immediate. News outlets declared it a defining moment, headlines screaming that Barrett had been flipped in her own arena. Social media hailed Crockett's performance as legendary, clips of her final lines spreading across platforms in seconds. Hashtags trended, memes were created, and the confrontation became the most talked about political exchange of the year. For Barrett, the silence after Crockett's words would follow her far beyond the chamber. For Crockett, it was the moment she cemented her reputation as a fearless truth-teller, unafraid to turn power on its head. And for America, it was a reminder that even the highest robes of justice are not beyond questioning, and that sometimes the sharpest cross-examination doesn't come from a judge, it comes from the people's voice.